Now more than ever, transportation business owners need industry experts at every stage in their company's life cycle. We bring them to you in the hot seat.
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. It's great to be with you. We've got an excellent guest today, Chris Henry at Carrier's Edge. Chris, welcome to the Hot Seat.
Glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it. You're the Mike Wallace of podcasts and trucking. So,
well, we'll see about that here in a moment. So, before we heat things up, let's just 30 seconds. Tell us who you are and what you do here in the transportation logistics industry.
yeah, absolutely. Chris Henry. I'm the vice president of Carrier's Edge, in charge of the customer experience group and our recognition programs in transportation. Carrier's Edge, my new home, we're one of the largest online training providers in the transportation space, focused almost entirely on online training for drivers. So our commitment is, and our belief is that drivers would much rather complete training in the comfort of their own home or cab as opposed to spending their days off in a meeting for in-person training. So that's our mission, and we develop our own content. So great company.
I love it. I love that you love it. So let's heat it up. So a lot of options there as it goes to education. For those that are not familiar with Carrier's Edge, you just gave us a brief overview, but specifically, what is one thing about the training that Carrier's Edge is doing that is a real benefit for carriers that they may not know about?
Well, I think that could be illustrated using the pandemic as an example. So our biggest competitors are not other online training providers. They're safety professionals at motor carriers that have been historically reticent to move to a different format to train and develop their drivers. And what this last year has done is had those people rethink that, and there's been a lot of positive feedback we've received from those reticent people, and they've been able to train more drivers. So typically, if it's just in person, they're only reaching 30 to 40% of their drivers in terms of any training initiative. They can reach 100%. The training is consistent, the same 100% of the time. And you, as you know, with presentations, in-person presentations, you can never get to 100% consistency every time. So that's the key benefits. And you can just get out more training. So you can create monthly assignments, have them complete them at their leisure, and not disrupt the driver's home time. And home time is probably the most important thing. Drivers want to be, when they're home, they want to be connected with their families as opposed to, going into the office or going into a facility to take some remedial or new training.
I like it. So, quick overview, something that is of a significant interest to those in the industry and at the supplier level is the Best Fleets program that you guys do. So, tell us, when did it start? What has happened since you guys started doing this?
So the program was started by the founders of Carrier's Edge, and that program was started because they recognized in speaking to their carrier customers that there was a lot of progressive HR practices that were missing from trucking entirely. So as you know, when there's a trucking problem, our group, including the carriers, tend to look for a trucking solution. And that has always been a liability that has existed in trucking, and it will continue for years and years to come. However, what we wanted to start introducing, what they wanted to start introducing were progressive ideas from other industries that may help out these trucking companies. So they created this recognition program modeled after another workplace recognition program in another industry. And that was conceived in 2007, launched in 2009. So it's grown every year. And what we're examining is the qualitative aspects of these companies. So their people, their processes, their program strategies, the stuff that's really hard to score and quantify. But we have a great system to do that, a very rigorous system. And at the end of the day, those that continue to outperform their peers with progressive practices not only are recognized, but they learn a great deal by participating in the program. So it's an amazing feedback loop.
Well, let's dig in there a little bit. What are some of the cool um, or progressive, as you said, tactics or programs that you have been able to unearth as part of this program?
Yeah. So speaking of this year, I'm not going to give with the entire kind of farm away this year because we're going to be doing some announcements. But some of the things that I've highlighted were, you know, one of the themes that I saw with multiple carriers was communication training. It could be just some seminars that they've attended, some non-drivers and drivers have attended, right to what they call elocution training. I had heard that term before, but I wasn't familiar with what it actually meant. It was just one that I've heard in passing before, but it really is focusing on how you deliver your message. So thinking more clearly about how you're delivering your message as a dispatcher, fleet manager, safety professional to the driver. So we had a couple companies mention that. One in particular put a big focus on that. So I thought that was really a really neat thing, something novel that I could pull from this year. The other thing that I'm starting to hear more of is um, these uh, these ELD and critical event recorders that almost all of the carriers in the program now have. What they used to be used was to capture negative events and then have some resulting effect after. It used to be more of a stick, and now some carriers are using them uh, using a carrot methodology. So it's recognizing these devices are now starting to recognize good things. So, hey, you did something well. We're going to give you a star for that. And I never even thought of that. I've spent many years with carriers, many different diverse carriers, as you have, and I had never heard of a device or a group of devices being able to do that. So I thought that was really awesome. So those are some of the key things that, but there's many more that we're going to be sharing in the next
I
couple of
love
months.
it. I
Mhm.
love that. So, you and I have some overlap in terms of this, the metrics and the data. Us on the valuation side, you're with the benchmarking, with the best practice groups. It's pretty straightforward when you're trying to score or value quantitative data, but when it comes to the more qualitative and tangible
Mhm.
side of goodwill, it's a little bit more art than science. So, how are you doing that when it comes to the Best Fleets program?
Yeah, that was the scariest part for me because, as you mentioned, I had a long history in the quantitative side, and although I thought at the time it was difficult getting every carrier normalized in terms of their financial and operational data, it's it's nothing compared to scoring the qualitative aspects. So, uh, participants in the Best Fleets to Drive For program, they get nominated, so it's driver initiated, but they have to complete a lengthy questionnaire, open form. It's not standardized, multiple choice. It's open format, and we then have to conduct an interview and score those results. So, really, what we benefit from is the years that Mark and Jane and others on the Carrier's Edge team have put into developing this methodology to make it easy. So we have rubrics for every single question that we score, over 50 questions that we score, and we develop a legend, and that legend changes every year, and that's the progressive aspect of it.
So one thing that caught my eye or caught my ear in our conversation leading into this was your partnership that you're formulating with the Women in Trucking. So tell me a little bit about that and where you're headed with that.
Everyone can attest, regardless of industry, that gender equity can use some help, and the biggest gap that we see is companies, and in this case, it's not just going to be limited to trucking companies, but companies in the transportation space being able to benchmark how they're doing with others with respect to, female drivers is one example, but really role equity. So the example that I always use, and you run into this probably all the time, is I'll go into a carrier and you'll hear an owner mention, well, Sue here, she's the brains of the operation. And you don't think of it, over time because it happens so frequently. But then when you stop and look back, you think, well, Sue's sitting in a cubicle. She really is the brains of the operation, while Jim over there is in a cubicle or a corner office and with the company car and all that other jazz. There isn't, and it's not across the board, but there does seem to be a problem with role equity and decision capabilities being given to particularly females in this industry. We need to elevate that as well as minorities. And this partnership, and this partnership will hopefully do just that.
Well, I wanna stay tuned to what you guys do there. That's exciting stuff. So I got a final wild card question for you. Now you and I have a little bit of overlap in terms of fitness, trying to stay fit. I'm going to confess to you, it's been a little rough last couple months. Got COVID and pretty serious snow right here. One thing that I've always admired about you, you get your family involved in fitness. So what are a couple tips for those in the transportation logistics industry to have an enhancement coming out of this some COVID fog, stay healthy or get more healthy? What would you recommend for getting families involved to do that?
Yeah, well, up here in Ontario, where I'm based, a lot of the gyms were shut down during the pandemic. They've been pretty rigid in terms of the rules, so we've had to find other ways to get our activity, and our kids have been put in the same boat, obviously. So we've purchased, we now have Fitbits, and we have targets to get, our steps in. We can't get to the gym, but we have our own. I'm actually in my office, and there's a workout area right beside me, so it's convenient. So make it convenient. I know for those who are traveling, such as drivers, or what I was like, prior to last March, was being in the airport all the time. It's tough, but you just have to kind of schedule it in. So every morning it's either a run or 10,000 steps before I start the day, and it's simple. It also gives you time to reflect and think about the day ahead.
I love it, sir. And I'm always excited when we get a chance to connect. Excellent job in the hot seat. That's going to do it for us, y'all. I'm Spencer Tenney, and we'll see you next time.